9:59 in the morning, and you guys are waiting.
Thanks for showing up. Really.
Well, let's start by welcoming your 2017 Comic Creator Connection All-Stars. So I want to start with a little bit of introduction. My name is Doug Neff. This is Corey Hoffman. You see on our printed name cards there. About 10 years ago, we started a little company called Toucan Learning Systems. And we started that company because we wanted to help people bring their creative projects to life. And we started with a workshop on goal setting that we did every year at Comic-Con and WonderCon. And people started coming back the next year and say, I made this thing because you inspired me. And we wanted to keep going with that. So the next thing we did was the Comic Creator Connection. You all have a postcard in your hand. And the Comic Creator Connection is still going on, and it happened last night. It'll happen Sunday as well. Comic Creator Connection, Corey, it's a networking event, but it's done in the style of like speed dating. But instead of dating, you're trying to find a working partner to collaborate for comics. Comics are, especially if you're independently producing them, is where do you go to meet people who you can work with? How do you find them? And we came up with the idea, we pitched to Comic-Con International, and they jumped at it. They were thinking along the same lines. And so essentially the writer sits on the one side, the artist sits on the other, and every 5 minutes there's a rotation. And you pitch to each other. If something works, something clicks, you exchange information. If not, you politely move on. Yeah. And politely move on if it doesn't work out. And there's lots of them that you don't meet someone every time, but we ask at the end of every night, raise your hand if you met at least 3 people you'd like to work with. Every hand in the room goes up. So that started becoming very successful, and people would contact us the next year. Hey, not only did we make something, but we published it, and we wanted to send you guys a copy. So we have a shelf at home that has, all the things that people have produced over the years that they sent to us. We wanted to help people even more, so we started something called the Comic Pitch Review. And putting up a slide too, you can take a picture of that if you want. At 10 o'clock on Sunday, we hold this before the Comic Creator Connection in the same room. And that's basically pitch coaching. I'm a speaker coach, and so I sit across the table from you. You pitch your story or your comic or your artwork, and we have about 5 minutes, and we'll give you some coaching.
It's essentially made to help people who are going into the Comic Creator Connection get a little bit of practice under their belt to build some confidence, so when they're sitting down across from an artist or a writer, and they give that pitch for the first time, they've had an opportunity to work on it a little bit before they go in. It can be a little intimidating, though the Comic Creator Connection really isn't. It's a really, really fun, safe environment. But pitch, it helps people build their confidence, and it gives them a little time with Doug, who's an amazing speaker coach.
It's super useful.
It is. The pitch review?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Next came, we had this shelf that kept growing if people were finishing stuff. We wanted to give them a chance to show it off, so we started this panel, the Comic Creator Connection All-Stars. That meant that you could come, get some pitch coaching, go to the Comic Creator Connection, meet someone, make something, come back the next year and get your first panel at Comic-Con. And we thought that was a pretty awesome idea. So, and so these guys get together for the first panel.
Truly, it's one of the things that we're kind of this panel is, Doug and I just love it because it means so much to have these amazing people sitting here that in any way we had an involvement of how bringing that together, making it happen is just a joy to know that work is coming out of this, published work, and these opportunities are being given. That's awesome. That's really awesome.
I wanted to tell you about 2 new things we did this year before we get into our panel. We brought 2 new panels to the show this year. One was called the Writer's Danger Room, and Corey is an awesome writer, and he decided that you get to go to a lot of panels about writing, but you don't get to do writing at Comic-Con. So we had a 2-hour workshop, not even really a panel, it was a workshop. And you get to sit, and Corey led the room through 2 hours of writing exercises that would have twists to them, and then you take a prompt that you wrote to earlier and apply it to a new prompt, and at the end, he had some lessons that he left the crowd with. It was a huge success, and I think we'll be doing it again next year. After that, we started a figure drawing workshop, cosplay figure drawing. So 2 hours in a room where you could just sit and draw, and we brought in models in cosplay. So Corey, again, he's a great cosplayer. He was this amazing zombie costume. And our friend Eric over there came in a Jedi costume, and then we had a couple more throughout the event. But it was 2 straight hours of a full room of artists just getting to draw. And believe it or not, that's kind of a rare thing at Comic-Con too. You see a lot of panels where you can watch people draw, but there's not that many opportunities to sit and draw yourself and just get practice. So we're really excited about that. And it all goes back to that. We want to help people bring their creative works to life.
So look for them on the schedules.
Yeah.
Maybe WonderCon and Comic-Con.
And I bring those up because we have a mailing list, and we announce those new things before WonderCon and Comic-Con. So we'll pass this around if you want to be on our mailing list. We don't spam anybody. We don't share your information with anyone else. And we send out about 2 emails a year, so don't worry about us flooding your inbox. One last thing, Corey and I, we took everything we knew about helping people bring their creative projects to life, and we turned it into a book. It's called Epic Win, The Geek's Guide to the Journey from Fan to Creator. It's available on Amazon and Kindle. It's a self-help book for geeks like us. Much like any other goal-setting book or self-improvement book you see out in the world, except this one is written just for people like us. Every example, every quote, every story, every exercise in the book had to be something we could find at Comic-Con. So it's fun to read, and it's people tell us that it's very easy and inviting, and it helps them get inspired to reach their goals. We do have a few copies with us. If you want to see us in the hall afterwards, we'd be happy to exchange pieces of gold for them. So that's our book, and as excited as we are about our book, we're even more excited about the ones you're about to hear about. So here's how this is going to work today. We're going to do a fast introduction by each project, each team. These are creative teams here. And then we're going to do some questions from Corey and I, keep the discussion going. And then at the end, we'll be happy to take questions from you guys. So start thinking about what you'd like to know from the people on the panel here. The experience of putting out your first new projects are incredibly valuable experiences. Just like a baby or a toddler is soaking up so much information in their first couple of years, new creators are learning so much about how to finish things and how to publish things. So these guys are filled with wisdom. So we're going to start down at the end with a comic called Surrounded by Death. And we're going to hear from 2 people, Johnny and Mark. So why don't you guys start with introducing each other and then telling us a little bit about the book. And we're going to keep this to less than 2 minutes for both of you.
Challenge accepted. Don, so good to finally see you all again, and I really mean that, because I mean, this is just one of those moments that's been playing out in my head. All of you guys, the empty seats, everyone showed up, everyone sitting right next to me who I haven't seen their projects. My name's Mark Gillett, and I've been having this dream of just being in a panel since I was just a kid. I mean, I was not in a panel so much, I just wanted to be a comic book writer. And I just decided to psychotically devote myself to that profession of just like getting to tell stories, because really, let's face it, my words are necessarily all I have to give. And these custom suits aren't cheap. I gotta just like try to get some shit out there, otherwise I gotta keep affording these. Anyway, I'm gonna keep it down to just like one quick thank you, because as much as I'm happy to see all you people here next to me and in the audience, there are some people who aren't there, so if I can get a quick hello. Hi, Merlo. He's holding the camera.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Merle.
Merlo. Anyway, let's get the mic to Johnny C. I'll have some more time, so just like get on this later.
Hi there, I'm Johnny C. I'm the writer and producer on Surrounded by Death. Basically, the concept of the book is a group of survivors who are living out the post-apocalypse, zombie apocalypse in a mall, trying to coexist. And the primary story arc is the individuals venture into a very dangerous, closed-out portion of the mall for a very specific coffee blend that everybody loves in the mall, primarily so that the leader, because they're running out of it, and the leader wants to maintain his leadership status. We're available at 2103 downstairs in the booth, so make sure you swing on down and say hello. We actually produce the coffee from the book, so you can get the comic and you can get the coffee. It's freshly roasted less than 2 weeks ago.
It's a vanilla roast.
What's that?
It's still a vanilla roast?
It's a vanilla roast, that's correct, yes. It's 2 parts vanilla, 1 part French roast. It's got a nice hoodsy cup, chocolatey kind of sent. It's great.
Gee, I wonder how we got a lot about coffee.
They're apocalypse.
And I just want to thank everybody for coming out and supporting independent comic books.
All right, so we'll put up a slide for each project. You guys can take a shot of that with your phone, and it'll tell you where to find it. Some of them will have a link. Some of them, will have, like these guys, will have a booth number. And we really encourage you to check it out. Support new creators and independent comics creators. All right, our next project is called My Roommates, the Internet, and it's by Andy and Alex.
Yeah, hey, I'm Andy, I'm half of My Roommate, the Internet. It's a webcomic. We don't have a booth, but we do have the Internet. It's about a person, sometimes guy, sometimes girl, who has to live with someone who typifies everything awful and annoying about the Internet. They will write that Star Trek listicle that you know means nothing, but yet you get sucked into it. That morning when you wake up hungover and you don't want to be reminded what you did last night, well, I'm sorry, the Internet knows.
It goes without saying, there must always be a victim. So there's always the better half of the pair, who likewise switches between a guy and a girl, and they're often where most of the tragic humor comes from.
And we're definitely a comic creator connection success story, because I have ideas that I was pitching, but this one really came about. Well, I met Alex. I loved his art. It was sort of, I don't know if I ever told this, it reminds you of like classic Tex Avery's Looney Tunes, which I love. And I didn't have an idea for him. And I almost said like, oh, thanks. But then I realized I was being an idiot. If you find a good artist who's willing to work with you, find something to work on with them. So this is a comic that wouldn't exist without the connection.
And I'm very grateful for that, because the best thing for an artist really is to find someone who you can really mesh with, someone whose vision you can really bring to light, but also someone who's willing to work with you to help you malleate and shape your art into something that can really work for anyone.
It's true, I'm very helpful.
It's so modest.
Well, I've also been dreaming of being on a panel since Comic-Con 2001.
Wow.
And you guys made it possible, so, love and respect.
Wow. I think that's a really great point. In fact, I know all the writers on this panel take that same attitude towards the creator connection. They go in with some projects that they're wanting to create, but they're very open to what's coming back from the artists they see. And like Andy said, you see a good artist, grab them, find something to work on, establish that relationship. And maybe that thing you wanted to start with comes along later, but find a reason to work together. I think that's a reason why you guys finished something and are up here today. Okay, well, let's keep moving. Our next project is called The Feather, and only one of the creators could make it today, so Matt's going to introduce the comic.
My name is Matthew Fisher. I'm the writer of The Feather. Hillary Bowman and I met at WonderCon. She does not attend Comic-Con, unfortunately, but we met and pitched 2 or 3 projects and kind of came up with what style of thing works for both of us. This project was a gothic horror romance between an angel and a demon who fall in love but also realize they can only survive by consuming each other's feathers. And so it's about self-sacrifice and self-immolation and a little bit of angelic cannibalism. And it kind of worked for a love story and for a tragedy. And Hillary and I had a couple other projects which have not come out yet. But you can find Feather on Amazon. There's a short story version and a version with the artwork. And we may have another project that has been written and started but not finished. And maybe that'll be at WonderCon, since she's always an artist alley there.
Great. All right, let's have a round of applause for The Feather. All right, and our 4th project for today is called Dark Elements. And this one also involves Matt, so we'll let him start. And the artist on this one is Michelle. So Matt, why don't you kick us off and tell us shortly about this and then hand it off to Michelle.
Okay, I'm going to give Michelle all the credit in the world for this. This was her project, her inspiration. We met at the Comic-Con Creator Connection and kind of hit it off, and we got to talking there, and then afterwards, and there's I'll let her explain this, but there's an artist's challenge, and I'm always in for writers' challenges. You know, whatever, you pick a topic and run with it. And so this kind of started with her as her brainchild, and I was lucky enough to tag along.
Hi, so my name is Michelle Montrose. I'm a local here. I'm in San Diego. I am an illustrator and a fine artist, and I don't make comics, but I'm up here anyways. So if you're out there and you're not a comic book artist, I encourage you to still go, because like me, you can still find someone who you want to make something with, even if it doesn't happen to be a comic. So 31 Dark Elements is not a comic. Let me start by saying that. But artists have this challenge that they do in October called Inktober, where every single day during the month of October they create a black and white ink illustration. And so I wanted to participate in this, but I also wanted it to mean something. I wanted there to be a product at the end. And so I pitched the idea of Inktober to Matt, and we kind of cooked up this idea so that I would do 31 inked illustrations, and he would do 31 flash fiction tales with a spooky horror kind of bend. So at the end, we compiled all of the illustrations and all of the short stories into an anthology, and you can find it on our website, and it's also available on Amazon.
All right, let's have a round of applause for Dark. And there's also a web link on that one where you can read them online. So if you're interested, take a picture of that with your camera, and you can check them out. So let me put them all up there. This is your 2017 Comic Creator Connection All-Stars. All right, so we're going to start with some general questions now for the whole group. If you've got something to answer or a story, go ahead and answer. If not, you don't have to. We don't have to go down the line for all these. But Corey and I are curious what your personal CCC, that's what we call the Comic Creator Connection, because it's a mouthful, so CCC equals Comic Creator Connection. What was your CCC experience like, and or what tips do you have for finding the right creative partner to work with? Who'd like to take that one? Andy?
Can I start?
Yeah.
Yeah, my advice, mostly for writers, but for everyone, just remember, collaboration does not mean finding some other guy who will do what you tell them, some other person will do what you tell them, you know. That person has talent and value and experiences, and what you can make together is better than what you can make on your own.
Yeah, I would agree. The key to a successful partnership is collaboration, not only of your talents, but of your mentality as well. Getting properly in sync with each other so that you know what you can bring out in one another.
Awesome. I knew he was going to say that. I was going to add one more thing. The speed dating metaphor is really good, and also remember, you know, you're going to meet some really nice people who will not be your soulmate. You know, I've met a lot of good artists, and you know, we'll talk a little bit more about some other projects. You know, they didn't happen, and that's fine, because you know, everything that doesn't happen gets you closer to the thing that actually does happen.
And you'll learn a lot of nice people you won't work with too, but let's face it and be honest about it, you're also going to run into a lot of pretentious jerks at a low level, so don't be afraid to turn encourage if you need to. All right, stand up for your story as well as yourself.
I'll just add, when I go, I don't know about anyone else, I try to be the most aggressive person in the room. I talk to everyone. I talk to writers and artists. I talk to people in the hallway before and after. Writers generally wait. Artists are always the premium. There's always fewer artists there. And when you're waiting around to get to the next person, I walk the room, I look at other portfolios, I listen in, and I think I've certainly made long-lasting friendships. I go to WonderCon and Comic-Con, and they say email 3 people, and I try to email everybody, and whether it peters out or talent level, whatever, it's like I've made money writing, I've not made money writing, and I absolutely just you never know who you're going to meet, and someone else said down there you're making friends, and you're meeting new people, and they can change how you think about a project or inspire you, and I would encourage everyone to go and get everyone's email and contact everyone. So.
Yeah, I think that to add on to what other people have said, I think that transparency is probably the most important thing, because you don't want to work on something that you don't want to work on. And so to be upfront about like, hey, I don't really like drawing robots is very, very important. If the person across the table from you is pitching this awesome epic story about these teenagers who transform into robots, I just have to be very, very honest and very direct and not say, well, I don't really like to do robots. I have to be absolutely clear that I'm not your girl. We're not going to draw robots together.
No robots.
And that kind of leads into the question I have, which is, what would be your recommendation to people going into CCC on how to prepare for it, what to do to get ready for it, and then also upon coming out of the CCC, what would be your recommendations?
So, yeah, I can field that one. I think one of the things you want to...
Johnny, did you just raise your hand?
I did. I'm trying to be polite this time.
See this hand? I can't see Johnny, but I see this hand raised
I
up.
figure I leave the obnoxiousness to Mark, so I'll be the polite one this time. He's the bad cop.
All right.
It's fair casting.
So I think one of the things you want to do when you're looking at Creator Connection is not only going in looking at the project that you want to make, but looking at the qualities of the individual. Because, in a circumstance where you're looking to produce a book, if you're looking to collaborate with an artist, well, where's that going to go after? You can make the book, but are they going to be there for the marketing of the book? Are they going to be exhibiting at a show after? Do they table? Do they do any artist alley stuff? So if they're not, if it's not something where they're going to hold up that end of it as well, if they're not fully invested in it, then you might be better off doing a page rate opportunity, where you're paying them. It's not a 50-50 collaboration versus, something where if you speak with somebody, you both have a passion for the project itself, you're both equally invested, that's more of a true form collaboration. And you can find that in the very early stages of looking for an artist or a writer here, in the Creator Connection portion. Those are things you ask. Don't specifically focus on the project that you're bringing to the table as much as what's the character of the person sitting across from me.
Yeah.
And are they an individual that you can count on that can take your book from A to Z, and in between being producing it, working with you, keeping an open, creative heart. So that way, even your input is there. It's just not dictation. Do this. This is how page 1 should be. This is how page 2 should be. But just kind of going back and forth and flowing. And then furthermore, just marketing and putting the word out there, and not just being a totem, but also a beacon.
Right.
So that way you're putting the word out. You're not just one individual waving a flag, but a team waving a flag for your specific book.
Yeah, I think you speak to something that a lot of people that haven't done this yet don't realize, that there's way more to the process than just writing and drawing and printing out the comic. There's a whole life after that that's promoting and hawking it wherever you go, and always having some in your bag to show someone, and going to a convention and having a booth. You guys know that's no longer going to Comic-Con and walking around and getting all the free stuff and seeing, the Warner Brothers panel and that. Now you're working.
We're professionals.
Yeah, now you're professionals and you're working the whole time. Comic-Con isn't for fun anymore. It's for your project, and you have a responsibility to that project to nurture it along every step of the way.
So I've been coming to sorry to interrupt, I've been coming to Comic-Con for 8 years. This is my first year as an exhibitor, so I have to let go of the stuff that I really want to do. Like I have a panel at 5 to 6 today, later on this afternoon, directly against Marvel Studios. I want to be in Hall H with everybody else. But I mean, it's also my civic professional duty to serve my projects, my creative process, and to, let everybody know about that. So you really have to kind of pick and choose your battles and, put your passion, in your best foot forward in that regard.
Yeah, I haven't been to Hall H in years. I don't have the time.
I don't even know what the inside looks like. I really haven't.
Well, it looks a little bit like this room here, actually.
Oh, it's a big open space? Wow.
Hopefully you won't be finding out anytime soon, because honestly, you have to sell yourself. You are your best product.
Yeah, that's great.
Well said.
Yeah.
So speaking of like selling your project, what was it that drew you guys together? Where did you guys click in the process of coming together and creating something?
I'd say just, I mean, with me and Johnny as an example, I mean, it was just like, our meeting wasn't just like, how we would put it in a movie. It wouldn't be the most exciting thing in terms of just like how we met was just, oh, hey, who are you? Oh, I'm Johnny. Who are you? I'm Mark. It started on that basis, but I think the thing that just connected us was like, we made each other laugh. That was just like one thing right off the bat, and it was just like, hey, you're particular looking, and then I'm the strange looking character myself, and we got to figure this out because I don't think it's good here.
You know, I was just going to say there's a very unique circumstance of me and Mark because we're both writers. So you're probably thinking, how did two writers meet at Creator Connection where you're supposed to be against an artist? And what had happened was it was one of the years that it was very lopsided. I think we had maybe 3 artists and like 25 writers.
Yeah, we'll tell a story about that in a minute.
That poor girl, I forget who she was, but
It was Michelle. Yeah, she's here. Was it Michelle? So I'll just tell the story for a minute. We had, sometimes artists tend to show up later than writers. Half hour before the CCC starts, there could be 30 artists waiting in line to get a seat. And half hour after the connection starts, that's when the artists will all be there. But this particular one, there were no artists when we started, and Michelle walks in. We're like, yes, we'll give her a seat. And for at least a half hour or so, Michelle was the only artist in a room full of
And then it
writers.
started to fill out.
Yeah. But I bet that was a good feeling, right, Michelle?
Well, I was the special snowflake. It was the best thing. Everyone was like around me like, oh, what's this creature? Is this the natural habitat?
Yep. Anyone that wanted robots, she just kicked them right out. She said, next. So at that Creator Connection, you know, until things got going, we called an audible. That's a sports metaphor. And we said, well, let's shift a little bit, and we'll put all the writers together in sort of little pods and let them meet and practice pitching their work until some more artists get here. And one of the writers, Johnny, stepped up and he said, well, I'm also interested in working with writers too, so I can sit as an artist and meet with them. And he and Michelle sort of held the fort until reinforcements arrived. So yeah, Johnny, take it from there.
Yeah, well, essentially, because in the position I was in, I have another book, it's called Sartana. It was actually my first Creator Connection collaboration from the previous year, but it was kind of slowing down a little bit, and my artist wasn't producing fast enough, so I was looking for another project to get going, but I didn't necessarily want to have to write it because I was really fully committed to Sartana. So I said, well, let me act as a producer. If I see a concept I really like, I wouldn't mind funding it, either going the Kickstarter route or just kind of self-funding and seeing if there's a project. And then, you know, Mark came up with Surrounded by Death, which I know he doesn't like this analogy, but I saw it as Mallrats meets The Walking Dead, and it just seems like a really great concept. And I just saw it unfolding in my head as a comic, and we had to pursue it. So I kind of capitalized on the opportunity where, okay, we're in a room full of writers, there's no artists here, people are going to be looking for artists, well, how can I work this to my advantage?
So let's build off that and come back down to Michelle. And how did that Creator Connection work out for you? And how did when you met with people or when you met with Matt, you know, what made you click? What made you find those connections?
Yeah, so funny story, I was on someone else's professional badge that year because I had gotten a scholarship for school, and my second place prize for not getting the scholarship was a 4-day pass to Comic-Con. So I said, okay, let me make this worth my while. So I went to all of the portfolio reviews, and I went to both of the Comic Creator Connections, and it was great. I met so many people. That's where I met Matt. That was 2015. And so what really made our connection work is that he was flexible. And I picked the idea, and then he wrote based on my idea. So it was kind of a unique situation where, like, neither of us had like plot lines or characters or anything like that to bring to the table. It really was a collaboration. So his stories came first, and then based on his stories, I would do my illustrations. So
And it's a very good collaboration.
yeah, and it was very, very succinct. I think that another thing that made our collaboration work is that we had a deadline. And so the deadline was always midnight the night before for him and midnight that day for me. And having that really strict structure made sure that it got done. And keeping us on that timeline, it was like assignments. And, you know, we we made a 30-page thing in a month.
31.
31-page thing in a month.
31 days, that's the number.
So, it went from
That's an achievement. That's really awesome because I mean, some days I'll only write a paragraph, but at least that's a small achievement. But just to even think that 31 pages, a page a day, is very, very hard. So that's definitely something to be congratulated.
Yeah.
I also like to start with, Well, I also like flexibility. That's a great term. I see artists and writers who confuse passion with essentially having blinders on. Essentially the person who's like, no, draw robots.
Yeah.
Robots, and if you are a creator, you should have more than one good idea and, be open to what that other person can bring to the table.
Right. Yeah, it comes down to do you want to make comics or do you want to make a comic?
Right.
And I think the first answer is going to get you a lot more experience, a lot more progress, and maybe that dream that you've had of making that one particular story since you were a kid, maybe the universe wants you to be a little better at it before you dive into that one. Get some experience under your belt before you do that. I also think great point, Michelle, about deadlines. That without a deadline, a goal is just a wish, and practicing hitting deadlines is one of the most valuable things you can do as a growing creative professional. That separates the pros from the amateurs. So setting a one-day deadline and learning to work together on that and push each other when you're falling behind, that is hugely valuable, and that will serve you better later on than any other class or lesson that you can take, I think.
Yeah. And also doing it really helps. I mean, you go to Comic-Con and you go to the how-to panels, and they're all really good, but that's like 10%. 90% of the stuff you learn is when you're actually making stuff.
I'll jump on Andy's point right there. Getting into the Comic Creator Connection as a writer who cannot draw, I mean, look, my hands are shaky right now. I mean, imagine me with a pen. Anything but words, it's terrible. So, yeah, exactly. Actually, I've been doing this since kindergarten with the jitters. That's beside the point. I had no clue about just like how to write comic books, and I just mean in the literal sense of just like how to properly do a panel script and everything like that. So meeting with Johnny and Joe, they're really teaching me about how to just do this art form of like actually telling comic book stories and how to set up a joke visually, or just like write something up as a panel. I mean, it's definitely been like the writer I walked in as in the 2011 when we met. 13. Yeah, 2013. Like I walked in here. The writer I was then, I'm a different writer completely, and that's just because of my time just like learning from Johnny or learning specifically from Joe about just like how to put things together. I mean, I'm infinitely better, and I'm excited for my career after Surrounded by Death, just because I know working with these guys has made me better, and the people that I will work with and collaborate with will continue to do so. I want to be like flying bird, and I want to age and just get better.
All right, let's talk about as you got into doing your projects together. What was your biggest challenge in finishing, publishing, creating this project? Mark, you got something to say. Go ahead.
So how slow it would be and how little money I had.
How slow it would take and how little money you had.
I mean, I went into just like going to comic books, like having no education how it's going to go. So I'm just like, oh, cool, I found a collaborator. We're going to work on it. Then we found an artist, and that was amazing too. But jumping onto that, it's just like, okay, now we got to wait for the pages. And the waiting part was the hardest thing because it was like, yo, Joe would take his time. Joe's an incredible artist, but he'd make a page as they go, and it was exciting for the waits, even though they would be grudgingly long, because it's like a new page would come out, and I would just be like, oh my god, this is amazing. But then it would have to be, once the pages were done, all right, we now have to afford the coloring. And I work plenty of crappy jobs where I'm just like, oh, it's going to cost how much to get this pulp put together? All right, it's like I'm going to have to just like do a lot of janitorial work.
So it always takes longer than you think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially when you're starting out and you have no idea how long this stuff takes. It probably takes a lot longer than you think.
Yes.
Yeah. What other challenges do you guys have in publishing?
I'm assuming that there are a lot of creative people in this room, and I think that everyone has at some point experienced creative fatigue, where you just reach this point of like, I've been doing an illustration every single day for the past 20 days, and eventually you just reach a point that you have to just kind of push through. It's like mile 20 on like a marathon, which is 26 miles, and if you do that, bless you, I cannot run to save my life, but I can draw for 30 days. And I think that when you experience that,
31.
Something happened that last day, but she's just pushing it down. No, 30 days, that's a third, that was it.
But for the creative fatigue, I think it's also really important to push through, because when you push through it, it means that you increase your endurance. So I think that it's a struggle, but it's also something that really helps you to grow.
I just want to add to that. You know, I think that was our project probably had a unique challenge. That, you know, that having that deadline, having that every day, flying without a safety net, and we, you know, made up new stories. That was another thing, that it was going to be all new. That's a large creative challenge, and I think I'm a writer that subscribes to that idea of you write every day. I've actually done this for an entire year without an artist, but I did write a new story every day for a year and post it online, and that's exhausting. 200 days in, you don't know how you've actually come up with 200 different ideas, and you don't know how you're going to come up with 160. I don't know if it's a leap year, I don't remember. But that, you know, write every day or draw
30
every
days
day.
instead of 31 days.
Yeah, 31 days, yeah.
So just real quick to that, I think one of the things to help combat that fatigue and the creative writer's block, so to speak, is just to have a really positive influence and surround yourself with friends and people who support you. Because at times there's a lot of self-doubt in the creative process. There's times where writers can, you know, write a page, scrap it, write a page, scrap it, and you could be just this vicious cycle over and over again, and you're just not getting anywhere. But if you do have a good support system, and you have friends and people who support you and support your creativity, it really helps to combat that.
One of the things Corey and I put in our book was having building a team like that, and one of the big characters you need on that team is a cheerleader. Someone, your Jimmy Olsen, you know, someone who you can meet up with, who always believes in the dream of you. You know, he's not concerned with however this project is going, but believes in you and will tell you that, remind you of that. And it's, you know, who you go out for drinks with, who you go to the movies with, who you play games with, who doesn't care if it's going bad. They know that you got this, you can do this. And they see you on this panel. You know, they don't see you in the sweating and not getting day 27 finished like you should and things like that. They see you on this panel and can remind you of that. That's hugely important.
Yeah, hold on to your passion really tightly, because as hard as it is to believe, when you've been working on it 3 months, you get this page back and you're like, okay, I remember when I thought of this, it was funny before I had to read it 30 times. You know, I was a smart guy 3 weeks ago. It's still funny, you know, and just remember you're doing what you love too.
So if you could do it all over again now, what would you do differently?
Not a thing, man, because I mean, every no that you go through is part of the process. You know, I've taught screenwriting, and you get the students who are like, you know, my first drafts are always like messy and imperfect. How can I just skip over that to the final draft that's good? And no, the only way out is through. You gotta meet a bunch of artists, go through a lot of things that almost happen before you get to something that actually happens.
Yeah, as sloppy as I was and clumsy when it comes to just like learning how to just make comic books, I wouldn't have learned it any other way. That's what made me a better storyteller. It was just like coming in with just like these ideas and this attention to detail, how I wanted it to look. But it drove me to just be able to like, go in there and be like, okay, I have that passion, but I don't care how clumsy I am, because it's like that clumsiness is going to make me figure out how to be good at this. And I need that. And it's polishing, you know? You don't put a diamond into a rock tumble, you put a crappy piece of coal. That's the thing that just becomes a diamond.
Trial by fire kind of thing too.
Damn straight.
Can I ask everybody up here as well? Because you talk about what's the biggest challenge, or what would you do differently? And I think, you know, as creative people, you go to school, you learn, you're creative, you focus on that. And for me, it's the after. In both cases, what do you do after? Like you have to learn marketing, you have to learn some business skills, and as someone else mentioned, you know, it costs money to print. And what do? And you say, what would you do differently? And not just for this project necessarily, but for a lot of projects. You can learn how to sign a contract. You can make sure we're both legally protected. I own my work, she owns hers. And there are websites to give you a template for a contract, but like, how do you raise money? You know, if you want to do the Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Patreon, whatever you want to do, or how do you get your publishing? You know, how do you go to a publisher? There's a lot of business side to it that I don't think when I first started coming to your events or first put out my first self-published comic, I wasn't ready for any of that.
Yeah.
And you can say, oh, people have booths downstairs. I'll get a booth. Well, it's like, well, that might be $300. That might be $1,800.
Plus staying in San Diego.
Plus your hotel. Yeah. Right. And so I don't know. I feel like for me, there's still, lots and lots of work to do for the business side. I don't know if any of you guys have the same experience or like difficulties.
Oh, yes.
Johnny raised his hand.
We're on the internet, so we're looking forward to all that.
So the biggest thing I learned in the creative process to that extent was my taxes.
Yeah.
Learn to write off what you need to for taxes, because that is the make or break difference. You will break yourself trying to fund becoming a professional creator.
Sure.
If you don't get the write-off and you don't learn the tax process where you can make that money work for you and maybe come back to you, know when you can write off, know what expenses can help build your creative empire, so to speak.
Yep.
Johnny, have you thought about doing a panel about that?
I don't know. I should, but I'll give you some pro tips on the side, though.
Taxes for creative professionals.
Yep, that churro you bought out in the hallway, that's deductible.
I think Johnny just announced his next panel for.
I would agree on the funding and the marketing. I think that we did this really amazing thing, but we didn't really drum up enough hype. And so we didn't get people excited about it while we were producing it. So we didn't have that. Once we published on the 31st, there was no following. And we tried to do that afterward, and I think it would have been to our advantage to build that audience during the process and to release raw sketches before they go into Photoshop and release the ideas and to pool that community of people who are in our target audience before we release.
And it's not just whatever your Facebook following is. Or,
Yeah.
I think we certainly talked about it online and in social medias, but that's like you're talking to your friends or your family. You're preaching to the choir of people that are going to support you to begin with, but that doesn't make it grow. It's how do you find those people that they're going to champion it and they're going to tell their friends and actually make it grow that way.
Yeah, I think you have to think of yourself as you're the business, and it's constantly putting the word out there about your work.
Right.
And it's bigger than that one project, and it's bigger than just the people who are going to buy it first. It's constantly getting the word out there and asking people to engage. Well, that leads to, we're starting to talk about platforms, about where you put your work and how you get it out to people. You saw these 4 projects all have different distribution methods. I know Johnny and Mark, you guys are on Comixology. Let's talk about that for a minute. What was that like, getting your work up on Comixology? That's arguably the largest platform for digital comics now.
It is, yes. So it's a simple process to get it on Comixology. It's free. You just go through Comixology, submit with a PDF to their specifications, and they'll convert it for digital for you and upload it. Not only that, but they have a really neat feature called Guided View. So what it does is it isolates panels on the tablet as you're reading it, and it almost gives it a very cinematic flow. It works really well in some books, and in some books it doesn't. So in your creative process, at least now, going forward, I've made a point to try to let my artists know, hey, they're going to do this guided view thing on Comixology, right to that. And they'll do some really cool things. So like with Sartana, my spaghetti western, the way they isolate panels and the way things shift and flow, it actually feels like a spaghetti western versus just reading it in a magazine. And it almost becomes a different experience. So you definitely want to utilize it. I mean, it's very easy to just submit it, but once the 3 or 4 month window for them to convert it happens and it goes online, you share it all over social media, everybody's scooping up books, but you also have to really push that guided view option, because that's an experience that they can get from that you can't get from buying the issue and having it in hand.
Yeah, that's great. Any other guys, the platforms that you chose, any particular challenges or surprises that came up in using that particular platform? Andy?
I was surprised Tumblr is apparently becoming MySpace. Apparently, and I've been me some panels, like, and I'm so glad I did, because I thought we were just doing Tumblr wrong, but apparently nobody's doing Tumblr anymore. But Instagram is blowing up because they have the carousel view, which is perfect for mobile. You know, each panel you swipe through.
Gotcha.
And yeah, our, like, God, 80% of our audience is on Instagram now.
You think you're gonna? Oh, so you're on Instagram also?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we're freaking everywhere except 4chan, because, like, I don't know, I just feel like I have to wash my hands after I go there.
Okay, stay off of 4chan.
I'm on Reddit, and, you know, they are not nice on Reddit. You know, it just gets your skin there. But you
Really, a
find
place,
stuff
a
like-
place on the internet where not everyone's nice?
Yeah, I know. It's a comic about it, but yeah, it's also amazing. There's like another site called 9gag. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
And it's just funny stuff on the internet that they share. And even though our numbers aren't as big as Instagram, our engagement up there is way high.
Yeah.
They like us there. They comment on us. You know, you really plugged into a community. So, I mean, I don't know. The internet is this huge place, and you're always finding these new corners.
Right. Johnny, you've got your hand up again.
Yeah, one other app that's really cool, it's new, and I haven't really ventured into it too much, but I like the idea of it, is Webtoons. It's an app, and it actually adopts the scroll and Facebook flow format.
Yeah.
So you can actually write new stories to that reading experience.
So you're
kinda
just scrolling up
Yeah, you're
one
scrolling.
panel at a time. Yeah.
One of the individuals on there redid Star Wars in an anime style or a
Wow.
manga style, and you scroll it up, and it's very neat. It's just the way you read it. It's a different flow. It's a different experience. So when you can give a reader a different experience than something they're normally used to, that can help market, and that can help drive people to your project.
Yeah. I think we've got about 5 minutes left, and if there are questions in the audience, we want to have an opportunity to take those. So there's a mic over there. If you want to step up to the mic, and while you're sort of making your way over there, we'll ask you another question of the audience.
Let's hear about what's next for you guys, either with what you're working on currently or what's on the horizon for you.
Yeah.
Getting issue 2 out.
Issue 2?
Oh yeah, issue
Great.
2, next issue, tell the best story that I can. I mean, we just have a really good vision on our hands just to tell this story, and just like the goal, once we got Joe on board, was just like, we're gonna leave this story that we're telling surrounded by death better creators after this. But
Right.
to do that, we need to tell the story. So my focus is always where it's been, is just like, I'm gonna tell this story and see the whole way through. Like I told Johnny, like even this ends like the Ramones where we all hate each other at the end of it, we're still gonna finish the story.
Awesome.
Well, my next thing, I'm going to take a look at this Webtoons thing.
Oh yeah,
Webtoons.
really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, once we have enough, we'll probably be doing Comixology, because they've been very good about supporting us and the Creator Connection.
Yeah, they have. In fact, they've been a sponsor of the Comic Creator Connection, and they say that they'll help you once you get it up there. They'll help promote and stuff like that. So they've been very good to us.
And follow up with a bunch of artists from yesterday.
Yeah, and follow up with a bunch of artists from yesterday.
Free before you hit the pillow.
I was reading.
That's right. We take an oath at the end of the Comic Creator Connection. Everyone has to raise their hand and swear an oath that they'll follow up with at least 3 people before their head hits the pillow that night. So, and all these people did that. When you follow through, it works. Anyone else? What's next?
I'll say I'm working on a web comic called Tony Pitch Comics. It's about a middle school kid that plays soccer, and so it's good life lessons for kids, good soccer lessons, and I guess we do little short 4-panel strips, and I guess we're going to be doing a new batch of those. I found out yesterday, so that's kind of cool.
Nice.
And then I also write martial arts films, which is not with comic books, but if anyone likes that, they can maybe check out 66, the movie, or you can find me online. There's some movie trailers, and there's some things in the works there. And then Hillary and I, if our other project is ever finished, I'll let you guys know.
All right. Michelle? Nothing's next?
I have ideas of my own. I got the idea yesterday, actually, to develop a set of cards with characters with basic traits that can be used across any storytelling platform.
Nice.
So that's what I'm thinking about developing next.
Great. I think, do we have someone with a question on the audience? Yeah, what do you got?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I'm Cole Garris. I'm from the Ready Steak Network, and apparently I drank way too much milk. So, my question is, I created a lot of stories that I thought was amazing, and then I pitched it to everyone I work with, and they go, "What are you on?" Have you guys ever had one of those stories where you walked in, you're like, "This is the best thing ever," and then everyone made fun of you, and you're like, "Ooh," you just walk away?
My entire middle school experience.
All right, so we're gonna have to make this quick. I think we're down to our last minute or two, so.
People love my ideas.
People love Andy's ideas. Has anyone encountered that?
Are you pitching like everything? Because like.
Oh no, it would be like we're doing a little short skit, and then I write something like a little skit, or I'll be like, "Hey, I wrote this zombie story," and they go, "Oh, really?" And then it's like, "Oh, I thought that was great."
Yeah, just think about why you liked it, because even in the pitch review, like you think up this whole world and that's amazing, but then you try to pitch the whole world in 1 minute and it's just this like fire hose of information.
Yeah.
So it takes practice to get the kernel of why you love it, and other people love it, and not everybody loves everything too.
So I saw Johnny's hand, then Michelle, then Corey.
I was just going to say, maybe it's not the concept, it's just the way you're approaching it. So, I mean, sometimes the genre can be shifted to something different, or, if you just approach it from a different angle, you might discover things. So I've had a project that, just to kind of go back, is my next project. It's called Clark and Vibe. It's a post-apocalyptic future where artificial intelligence is now a superior race. I really like that concept, but then I didn't seem to get a lot of traction with it. But when I introduced the concept of a boy befriending a robot in that weird, tumultuous type of America setting, that's where the story shifted. And it still was my core concept, but I had this new element that made it more enticing to people. So just reevaluate what you're looking to do and see if there's another angle you can take.
Shifting the angle can help. Michelle?
So I'm not the writer, but sometimes I get an idea for an illustration that is this big, epic scene, and it's overwhelming. And so what I have to do, what I learned in art, is that you don't have to tell all of this if what you're interested in is this piece over here and all of this is background information. So I would say focus on what it is that is the most intriguing and fully realize that idea, and then add the background information later.
All right, Corey.
I am a firm believer in believe in your story. You know that there are people out there who created killer clowns from outer space. When they told somebody that this is the movie I want to make, people were like, I don't understand that at all. And look, and we all know that name of that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who doesn't understand? Believe in your story. The universe gave it to you for a reason. It's a gift to you, and it's a gift to share it.
And maybe the best response is to make that story anyway. And when they read it in real life form, you'll prove them wrong.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Thanks,
but
guys.
it's good that you're getting feedback. Sorry if I can jump on again. But also listen, there's this wisdom of crowds. If you get 8 different people who have the same thing of I don't get this, that's something you do need to listen to. Be passionate about your story, but be passionate about making it better too.
It's not wrong, but it could be broken.
And
It can be fixed.
just remember, just wield honesty, just try to wield that correctly. It doesn't mean beating yourself down every time it's okay, this could be better. Because if you do it too far in that direction, no idea you're going to think it was going to be good. If you don't listen to people that actually just tell you, well, maybe that actually exposed this weak plot point or this or that. That's what I like about my best friend Tim. He will listen to my pitch stories, and then if something's legitimately stupid, he'll tell me that. But if it works, doesn't tell me that. But it doesn't say anything, and then I'm like, oh, this is something. But that's just knowing how to wield honesty. Just surround yourself with people who tell you things, as well as just this intuition, man. That's real. That thing that you felt when you got that amazing idea for that story, that's real. Follow that. Bring that to life, man.
All right. Well, we got to stop there. So I just want to say again, this is your 2017 Comic Creator Connection All-Stars. And I know Andy and Alex have some copies of their webcomic that you can meet up with them afterwards, and they'll give you a copy to try out. Everyone else will be out in the hall. Corey and I have a few books if you're interested in that. And we'll see you next year.
Yeah, come see us.
2103.